westward expansion major concepts. The first question, and you're going to have to please fill out your note cards as you do this. Understand why people moved west and the challenges they faced. They moved west for religious freedom, for example, the Mormons. They moved west as missionaries to Native Americans. An example would be the Whitmans. The next is economic opportunity, gold and land, and also freedom and adventure. An example of those would be the mountain men or explorers. The challenges they faced were pretty varied, but pretty much all these groups that went west, they faced the challenge of disease. They faced vigilantes, a lack of justice. They faced Native Americans, dangers from Native Americans, and they faced economic failure. There was no kind of fallback plan. The next question is, outline the steps of westward expansion and achievement of manifest destiny. There's different steps of westward expansion, and manifest destiny is when we stretch from coast to coast, kind of the culmination of achieving this destiny that God had given us. First is the acquisition of Northwest Territory. That's right after the Revolutionary War. The Louisiana Purchase, the Florida Cession, the Texas Annexation, Mexican Cession, and finally the Gadsden Purchase. The third question is analyze the life of people and their impact on the West. So there's 8 different groups we're going to look at and what was their impact. The first is explorers. They brought back priceless information about the West. They helped prepare the way for settlement of the West, and they inspired many families to move west themselves. The next is Californios. They introduced Spanish grapes, olives, citrus fruit, opened California to the world, and many Spanish names of cities in California still exist today. Mountain men, their routes that they had became the Oregon and the California trails, and the trading posts that they had became supply stations for people moving westward. The fourth is missionaries. They opened the West to settlement. The fifth is pioneer women. They enjoyed freedom and equality, and this paved the way for women throughout the United States to gain the right to vote and to have increased status. The sixth is Mormons. These were pioneer farming methods that they used in the dry region of Utah, and this was kind of those specific farming methods were taken elsewhere in the West, and Salt Lake City became the center of their religion. 49ers, this group of people increased the population of California very quickly over 2 years, and thus it became the first state in the West. Unfortunately, one of their other legacies is reduced the number of Native Americans in California from 15,000 to 30,000, so huge decrease, mostly from disease but also from warfare. And finally, the Chinese helped build the West, and with them they brought diverse culture wherever they tended to settle. The final question is a culmination of all chapters 7, 8, and 9. Basically, the question is, what forces unite and divide a nation? The first is uniting forces. You have the economy, you have technology, you have labor, the arts, and then specific issues as well. And this is from your note-taking study guide. The dividing factors during this time was the North and the South. The North, the dividing factor is their economy. It's industrial. It's based on manufacturing. Their key technologies was the steam engine and the factory system. People lived and worked in cities because you had urbanization, and they worked in factories. Their source of labor was immigrants, unskilled workers. Their reform movements were expansion of public education and the abolitionist movement. And finally, in slavery, they had a growing support for abolition and they wanted to limit the spread of slavery, so they wanted to stop it from spreading west. In the South, their economy was agricultural and based on cotton. Their key technology was cotton gin. People lived and worked, and they were mostly rural, and many plantations and small farms. Their source of labor was enslaved African Americans. In the reform movements, they didn't really make any reforms in education, and obviously not in slavery. In slavery, it was dependent on slave labor, and they wanted to expand slavery in the West.